everyone, and welcome back to Royal Rumble. The custody of young Dominic will be determined in a highly emotional ladder match. This isn't just any contest. It's deeply personal, with legal custody papers for the 8-year-old hanging above the ring in a briefcase. Two men, Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, will fight not for titles or accolades, but for the future of a child they both claim to love. Whoever climbs the ladder and grabs that briefcase will walk away not just with a legal document, but with the right to raise Dominic. Commentators express anticipation and personal bias before the match even begins. One passionately supports Rey Mysterio, saying Rey and his wife Angie are the real parents of Dominic, despite the biological connection with Eddie Guerrero. He admits he may not be impartial, but he believes the boy belongs with the family that raised him. The crowd is introduced to Eddie Guerrero, who enters the arena to a mixed reaction. Despite being Dominic's biological father, Eddie gave him up at birth and only now, years later, is fighting for custody, seemingly out of spite toward Rey and an inability to defeat him in the ring. As Eddie makes his entrance, Dominic and a social worker appear ringside. Dominic noticeably pulls away when Eddie gets near him, a clear sign of his discomfort. Rey, who has cared for Dominic since birth alongside his wife, is visibly emotional and fired up for this bout. The commentary team empathizes deeply with Rey's position, arguing that love and care define fatherhood more than blood alone. Eddie, on the other hand, is portrayed as manipulative, unstable, and obsessed with control, not genuinely interested in his son's well-being. As the match begins, Eddie uses underhanded tactics, launching a sneak attack and quickly introducing a ladder as a weapon. Rey is at a disadvantage early on, absorbing harsh punishment. Despite the chaos, glimpses of Rey's determination shine through as he lands desperate but powerful counters, including a springboard dropkick and high-risk maneuvers from the top rope. The match becomes increasingly brutal, with ladders being used not just as climbing tools, but as devastating weapons. Dominic's face throughout tells a powerful story. Fear, confusion, sadness, and hope flash across his eyes as he watches the two men he knows as father figures tear each other apart. At one point, Eddie gains the upper hand and nearly reaches the briefcase, only to be thwarted by Rey's grit. Rey mounts a comeback, rallying with a 619 and dropping the dime off the top rope to huge fan support. The emotional toll on both competitors is clear, especially Rey, who is fighting not just to win but to protect the family he built. The most heartbreaking moment comes when Dominic, desperate and afraid, enters the ring and tries to stop Eddie by shaking the ladder. Eddie climbs down and tries to manipulate the boy, calling himself his new father and demanding affection. But before he can go further, Rey charges in and launches a furious assault to protect his son. The match becomes a flurry of punches, ladder shots, and power moves, each man exhausting every ounce of strength they have. Even as Eddie continues his brutal offense, sandwiching Rey between ladders and slamming them against his ribs, Rey refuses to quit. Every time Eddie ascends the ladder, Rey finds a way to stop him, though at great physical cost. Dominic's reaction from ringside remains gut-wrenching. His smile returns only when Rey fights back, his eyes filled with hope when his adoptive father climbs the ladder. As the match reaches its climax, both men climb toward the briefcase. Rey is agonizingly close to victory, but Eddie manages to knock the ladder down. Rey hangs in the air, clutching the briefcase, but Eddie yanks him down in a punishing powerbomb that leaves Rey nearly broken. Just when it seems all is lost, Rey digs deep. He recovers, counters Eddie's attempted finisher with a massive powerbomb of his own, and slowly crawls back to the ladder. With Dominic watching in anticipation, Rey climbs rung by rung. He looks down at his son, giving him a reassuring glance as if to say, "This is for you." He reaches the top and grabs the briefcase. But Eddie, ever the villain, kicks the ladder out from under him, sending Rey dangling in midair. He can't hold on. Eddie catches him and drives him to the mat again with a devastating powerbomb. At this point, the match is a war of attrition. Rey is battered, but he's not done. He summons one final burst of strength, launching another furious offensive and with the crowd roaring in support and Dominik praying at ringside, he positions the ladder once more. He climbs, wounded but determined, and finally reaches the top. This time, there's no one to stop him. With Eddie down and Dominik beaming with joy, Rey unhooks the briefcase and claims the victory, not just for himself, but for the family he's fought so hard to protect. In the end, it wasn't just a wrestling match. It was a deeply personal battle about love, identity, and what truly makes a parent. Eddie Guerrero may have shared DNA, but Rey Mysterio showed the world what fatherhood really means. As Rey Mysterio clutched the briefcase, the arena erupted with thunderous applause. His fingers trembled as he pulled it down, knowing that inside it were not just legal papers, but the affirmation that his bond with Dominik could not be broken. With the custody of his son secured, Rey dropped to his knees atop the ladder, overwhelmed by emotion. The years of raising Dominik, the nights spent worrying about him, the sacrifices he and his wife Angie had made, all of it had led to this moment. Below, Dominik stood wide-eyed, watching the man he called Dad claim victory. His face lit up, a mix of joy, relief, and admiration. Rey descended the ladder slowly, every step filled with pain from the beating he had endured, but also pride in what he had accomplished. He dropped to the mat, cradling the briefcase as if it were a newborn child. Dominik rushed into the ring and ran into his arms, the two embracing in a way that said everything words couldn't. Eddie Guerrero lay on the mat nearby, staring up at the lights in disbelief. He had given everything he had to win, not for love, but for control, for pride, for vengeance. And in the end, it wasn't enough. His manipulations, his cruel games, and his obsession with beating Rey had all backfired. The crowd booed him not just as a villain in the match, but as a man who had tried to tear apart a family for selfish reasons. The commentators were nearly speechless. One choked up as he described the victory, saying this wasn't just a win for Rey Mysterio, it was a win for every parent who loves their child unconditionally. The other agreed, adding that this match had gone beyond wrestling. It had become a powerful statement about what truly defines a father. Rey stood tall, holding Dominik close, raising the briefcase high above his head. This wasn't just a physical triumph, it was an emotional and moral one. Despite every obstacle, despite Eddie's relentless attacks, Rey had never wavered. He had fought with heart, with soul, and most importantly, with love. As the music played and Rey and Dominik left the ring together, the story that unfolded inside that arena would be remembered as one of the most emotionally charged and unforgettable moments in wrestling history. Not because of a title, but because of what was at stake, a child's future and a father's love. And on that night, love won.